What's up, everybody? This is Ryan here, and you're watching another Reflections video. So I'll just give the usual introduction. So in these particular videos, I basically just talk about a particular subject, which I feel like talking about, and in a very unscripted way. I do have some, what'll hopefully be some useful information for you based on the main topic of the video, but it's very unscripted, and I'm not in a rush. So if you're in a rush, then you probably won't want to watch this video. But if you do have a bit of spare time, I might just have some useful information for you. It's also early in the morning, so I have some pretty wicked bedhead, and I'll be drinking coffee. So, New Year's, at least what I will call Western New Year's, as not every country observes the same year system, is approaching. And I had quite a reasonably good time this morning, just going through my daily routine, just these basic disciplines I follow to try and keep myself in a good mood, to keep my mind peaceful and clear and ready to learn. When the mind is in a relaxed and peaceful state, then it is easier to learn new things. That's actually one thing which I learned quite a long time ago. I think I was about 15 when I first heard this, that your cognition can deteriorate quite a bit when you're stressed out. And cognition is a fancy word for essentially the brain's ability to learn new things. Anyways, that's not the main thing that I wanted to talk about, just a little aside there. What I wanted to talk about is, since New Year's is coming, what typically happens is people sort of reflect on all of the decisions they've made over the past year, and particularly at least in my culture, December is definitely a month where a good number of people kind of just decide to ease off on personal standards, eat a little extra food, tasty, delicious food, maybe drink a little bit more, and, spend time with your family and those sorts of things, and let a lot of the discipline sort of drop. Which I'm not actually saying that's a bad thing. I did that to some degree myself. And it reminds me of a saying that I actually heard from Joe Rogan, of all people, the great philosopher Joe Rogan, which is everything in moderation, including moderation. Anyways, but yeah, what typically happens is people will kind of cut back or loosen up a little bit in December, and then in January there's this thing that a lot of people do, which is basically to make New Year's resolutions. So these are like promises to yourself or something like that. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to cut back on doing this. Those kinds of things. And in truth, there are among some of my friends who are very hard-working people who kind of work hard year-round, and I've been guilty of doing this too. We do kind of make fun of that a little bit, because although if a new year does cause an individual to adopt a new useful, skillful habit, I think that's a good thing. Overall, if you have to wait to adopt new habits, if you're waiting for a particular date, um, in many cases, you can set yourself up for failure. So the main topic I wanted to discuss today, that's kind of a good segue, is habit acquisition, skill and habit acquisition, and learning how to acquire new habits in a skillful way, and why that very often fails. So, I would say habit acquisition, and this thing I'll be talking about in a moment, which I call work capacity. And I'll explain that. I don't mean, so work capacity is a physics term. In this case, I'm not using it in that sense, but it just, I like the word. So I forgot what I was just about to say, so let me just jump in and define work capacity. So when I was beginning my journey of teaching myself how to program and trying to build an online enterprise and do social media and video editing and really learn upwards of 6 different kind of trades or crafts, but yeah, I figured out pretty early on that if I wanted sort of if oh yeah, we got some wicked hair going on here. It's like anime hair. I figured out pretty quickly that if I knew that I have really high goals, and I figured out pretty quickly that I would have to work really hard to get there. But the problem in the beginning is that I was very bad at keeping my habits on track, at actually following through on habit acquisition, doing it every day. And I had a great deal of difficulty with what I've drawn up here on the board, which I'll get to that eventually. But it's basically just adjusting my habit acquisition based on the fact that I'm not actually the same person every day. And when I say not the same person, I really don't mean a metaphysical, I don't mean that metaphysically. I mean literally the soup of chemicals and electrical impulses and tissues in my brain over time change. The same is the case with you. So for the better part of the past 6 years, I've really been trying to figure out how do I actually get control of my ability to do work, to do useful work. And my work capacity is what I kind of call it. How do I actually improve that? So it was very difficult in the beginning, and the reason why is that what I've learned over time is that specific habits that I do every day greatly increase my work capacity on a day-to-day basis. You've heard me talk about these things all the time if you've watched these videos. I'm talking the meditation, the exercise, the eating right, all that stuff. I'm not going to ramble on about it today, but those are the things. The big problem in the beginning is that I didn't even have the willpower or the understanding of my fluctuating work capacity in order to actually adopt new habits and be consistent with them. And then the thing about that is, like, let's say for example you say I want to exercise every day because that'll make my mood better, it'll make my focus better, it'll help me sleep better. It's just a good thing. If you don't actually manage to keep that habit going you're not going to get the benefits you're trying to get out of it, obviously. So that's what I want to focus in on now, is why does that happen? So in my personal opinion, just observing my own experience and my own life, the primary reason why most of us fail to adopt new habits is that and this is something which is just not really well understood in my culture, is that we tend to think of ourselves as fairly fixed people, fairly fixed entities, like the ego is quite fixed. And I'm not trying to get metaphysical here, but what you think is your ego is your conscious experience, essentially, is largely affected day to day. So what this graph is on this axis, these are just days. And on this axis, we have just a percentage, 0, 50, 100 for work capacity. And the point I'm trying to get at with this ugly little graphic is that, let's say I want to kind of walk you through a scenario. So it's January 1st, the first day of the new year, and you're all excited. You're like, I'll just take one. Let me take the example of exercise, just because it's an easy example for me, but you can kind of apply this to whatever habit you're trying to acquire. So let's say, for example, you're like, okay, I ate like a ton of food over December. I put on a couple extra pounds. I think I want to get back into exercising again, for example. So oftentimes on the first day, unless you got really, really drunk on New Year's Eve, on January 1st, let's just say hypothetically, you're up at about 90% work capacity. So you're intrinsically motivated, you're excited about your goal. I'm going to exercise for, so for example, we're going to say, I'm going to exercise for an hour every day. And you're all excited about that. Like, yeah, I'm going to get jacked and all that kind of thing. So that's day one, and you manage to get through your exercise, whatever it is. Let's say like 30 minutes of cardio, 30 minutes of lifting weights, doesn't matter. So then you get to day two, and all of a sudden you're still kind of excited. You want to keep the habit going, but you're kind of sore from the workout yesterday, and you're kind of busy today. You don't have a lot of time to do the exercise, you kind of feel like, and so you manage to get like the weightlifting in, and that cardio stuff, it's not really that useful anyway. So but you do manage to go into the gym and just for a half hour, like really lift some heavy weight. And then you get to day 3, and you kind of pushed it on day 2 with the amount of weight you were lifting, because your body just wasn't used to what you were lifting, and you're really sore, like your whole body is kind of aching. And so you think to yourself, well, maybe I better do just the cardio today. I don't think I should really lift weights. Then you look outside, and the weather is horrible. It's raining. The wind is blowing. It's like a 20-minute walk to get to your gym, just so you can go on a treadmill or a bike. And then you just kind of say, well, I don't really, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this today. So on the 3rd day, you don't exercise at all. So on the 4th day, you feel, kind of bad. You missed a day, so you want to kind of make up for that. So you've got some motivation, and you do actually manage to work out again. And I kind of screwed up on my graph, but then just life gets in the way again, and eventually you lose the habit. You just lose it. So in 5 days, you manage to get maybe 3.5 workouts done or something like that, and then pretty soon you just fall out of the habit, and then all of a sudden, well, I guess I better wait until next year to start exercising again. So this is a pretty common occurrence. I went through this cycle a lot when I was trying to basically develop new habits: meditation, exercises, eating well, studying every day. That was a big one. That was really tough. So what happens, and how do we actually kind of fix this habit acquisition failure? So basically what happens is that, let's say, for example, we make plans when we're very motivated on day one. We just really, want to get the work done. Well, the problem with that is that this feeling of motivation in particular does not last every day. It's not a consistent factor. It fluctuates wildly from day to day. So when I say motivation, it's like this intrinsic, this inner kind of drive to get the work done. But there's two big things that can happen. For starters, that internal drive to get work done, sometimes it's just not there when you wake up. The past 2 days, even though I've still managed to get a great amount of work done, I didn't have that intrinsic get up and go kind of feeling. I had to go through my process to kind of get that, jumpstart that sort of effect. Maybe I'll talk about that later. And so that's the first thing. And secondly, sometimes life just throws things at you. Like in day 3, I was kind of supposing that you don't have any of that internal motivational capacity. Then the weather is really bad, so that's not helping you out either. So the problem is what we tend to do is we want to develop a new skill. Again, I'll take the exercise example. But the problem is we almost invariably we set the bar too high at the beginning. So in the beginning I said a half hour of weights, a half hour of cardio. Why don't we just bring that down to maybe 20 minutes of exercise a day, or even 10 minutes. And it doesn't have to be both cardio and weights. Just do 20 minutes of exercise every day. So on a day like number 3, the weather's crappy, you're super sore. If you really have to, just walk back and forth in your apartment for 20 minutes or something like that. Wait till the weather clears up and go for a walk outside. Like, if you really don't want to exercise or do like an intense workout, and you're always trying to force yourself to do that, then you're basically fighting your own motivational capacity. Whereas on those days where you have like no willpower, no motivation, and the life just isn't kind of helping you along with your plans anyway, which is often not the case, your new goal, your habit, needs to still be easy enough that you can get it done on those bad days at first. So this is, I've done a lot of rambling already, but this is the main point here, is just that, okay, when you want to adopt a new habit, you need to realize that very often, especially if you make your plans when you're really motivated, you are not the same person day to day in terms of your motivational capacity. So you need to say to yourself, okay, what should my baseline be for the next several weeks? So, for example, let me give you another example. Um, so over the summer, I was working a really horrible job. It was, well, not the most stressful job, but the hours were insane, and I was kind of literally sort of slowly killing myself between the online work I was doing and working at this place and studying every day, and I was falling apart. Um, and also as a result, my meditation practice, I do mindfulness meditation, uh, kind of fell apart. And that really upset me because that's something that I know has a great deal of benefit. And once I quit that job, I tried to reestablish my practice in sort of. So here's the thing, what I used to do is I would say, well, I'm going to start doing 20 minutes in the evening, 20 minutes at night, and I'm going to try and keep that going. I've learned that that doesn't work for me. So in this case, when my practice, my habit deteriorated, I said to myself, okay, 5 minutes every day. I always have 5 minutes to do meditation. If nothing else, I can sit in a chair and just observe my breath for 5 minutes, even on my worst day. So after I kept doing that for a couple of days, and then after a couple of days, 5 minutes just didn't feel like quite enough, so I went to 10 minutes. And then I stuck at 10 minutes for a day for about a good month. And then after about a month, I went up to 15 minutes again. And then sometimes even in the afternoon, I would do like a 10 or 12-minute meditation. And then in keeping that habit, just the fact that I'm doing it every day going, now every day is basically a 30-minute meditation in the morning, and most often I will do some form of meditation in the evening. Why do I do it? It calms me down. So what I'm pointing to here is ultimately it's okay to use the motivational capacity and to say to yourself, if I do this, if I adopt this new habit, it will bring me good things. So it's okay to do that, but you have to not delude yourself into thinking that you're going to be able to do something that is really difficult every day of the week if you don't have any sort of habit, that consistent habit and discipline established. So for the first month of your New Year's resolution or this new thing you're going to do, my advice to you is to drastically lower your expectations on what you need to do, because in the beginning your goal is just to acquire the habit, just to do it every day. In the beginning, that's your main goal when you're learning a new habit. Don't worry about how far you get, how much you're doing. Even do like the bare minimum. If you want to do a little extra on a given day, that's totally fine. Just don't fluctuate your baseline on a day-to-day basis. Your baseline is something that should last several weeks until you are literally comfortable doing that even on your worst days, or close to. So that's my main bit of advice for habit acquisition, is to basically, when you want to adopt the new habit, really consider that the most important thing for you to do is to actually just keep the habit consistent, to be consistent with it, as opposed to kind of the egotistical, I'm going to totally turn myself into a completely different person in a matter of several days, because guess what? It's not going to happen. It never does. So that's it. I wish you luck in your habit acquisition for the new year, and those are kind of just my two main tips. Focus on picking habits which increase your work capacity in general, which improve your mood, which improve your motivation. But when it comes to actually acquiring those habits, don't set the bar too high. Your primary goal in the beginning literally is just doing it every day. Doesn't matter how far you go. A great analogy from one of my teachers is that if you're teaching a child to ride a bike, you don't ask the question, well, how far did the child ride today? This child better ride their bike a whole mile every day if they want to learn how to ride a bike. No, you don't approach it like that. You just put the child on the bike and try to give them some encouragement and get them to practice a bit every day. And eventually it becomes natural, and that's when you can start to think about how far you go. But in the beginning, like I say, every day just get on the bike for at least 5 minutes. So that's it. Thank you for listening, and good luck in acquiring your new habits.